So, Mr. Penn, take it away to show us how to do it.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the SMPS team, to Jackie and everybody for having me. It's a delight to be here. Let's talk about 3 things that marketing does wrong, that marketing is very bad at. The things, unfortunately, that our stakeholders really want us to care about, being better, faster, and cheaper. First, are we getting better? In a 2019 survey from Price Waterhouse of CEOs were asked, what are your priorities? Right? What is important to you? The number one thing that CEOs care about, data about your customers and clients' preferences and needs. 95% of CEOs say that is critical. By the way, if you want the slides, just email me afterwards, I'll give them to you. 95% of CEOs say this is critical. How many CEOs say they're getting this? 15%, right? So we're not doing a great job of delivering what the corner office really wants. When we look at the use of marketing analytics, this is from the 2023 CMO survey, which you can find at cmosurvey.org. It's a fantastic read. When asked, and what percentage of projects does your company use available or requested marketing analytics before a decision is made? The slide says it's an all-time high of 48%, right? So 52% of the time we're just what? Flipping a coin, guessing, throwing darts, reading goat entrails? This strikes me as this shows progress over time, but at the same time, it's a little bit alarming that more than half the time we're just guessing, right? And this is not a new trend. This has been the case for over 8 years. We've been hovering somewhere between a third of the time we're using data to now a half. 8 years later. This is not great. So in terms of marketing being better, we're not really delivering. We're not doing a particularly good job of that. But we're getting faster, right? Well, not really. The world's getting faster. We're not. In 2018, IDC and Seagate collaborated to estimate how much data is going to exist in the world every given year. And as of this year, we are about 50 to 60 zettabytes. Now, a zettabyte, you've heard like megabyte, gigabyte, et cetera. A zettabyte is an unimaginably large amount of data. Here's what a zettabyte is. If you started watching Netflix and didn't stop to eat, to sleep, to do any bodily function whatsoever, and you started 55 million years ago, you would have now just used 1 zettabyte, right? And we're going to create 55 of these this year. That's how much data we're creating. The Domo has this thing called Data Never Sleeps. Once a year, they release a study of what happens in 60 seconds on the internet. 2.4 million snaps, 5.9 million Google searches, 347,000 tweets, 16 million texts. Right? That is an incredible amount of data that's being generated that we as marketers have to contend with every single day. This is how much data we're facing. Even for folks who just do traditional stuff like press releases and news stories. Maybe you're hoping that you'll make it in one of the local trade publications or the local paper, or if you're really lucky, a national trade like the Wall Street Journal. This year, we are on track to do about 60-ish million news stories, right? And this has gone down year over year, mainly because news outlets keep going out of business, right? The actual news keeps growing. But just this year, on any given day this year, there have been 165,000 news stories, right? In context, that's 6,900 news stories an hour, 115 news stories a minute, 2 stories per second. So if your company, your firm, your client is on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, they're gone. 60 seconds later, they're gone because something else has taken its place. So the internet has gotten faster. We have not. And the last thing people want us to be is cheaper, and we're not doing a particularly good job of that. As a percentage of overall budgets, marketing keeps getting more expensive. Right? We keep consuming more and more of the budget. In fact, marketing budgets as a percentage of overall company budgets is at an all-time high. Now, in good times, this might be okay. One of the most reliable indicators of a recession is this piece of data called the 10-year to 3-month Treasury bill spread. It's the difference in the interest rate between a long-term investment and a short-term investment. And the reason this is a good indicator is that if people think that bad times are on the way, they don't want to lock their money up in Treasury bills for 10 years, right? They take a short savings. So if you look at the chart, anytime that index goes below 0, a recession is almost immediately afterwards. This goes back to about 1970. It's the most reliable indicator. We are here. Whoops. We are here. We are now in the red. So if people are saying, well, we're not sure if there's a recession or not. Yeah, there is. There's a recession. We're spending more, and we're about to be told to not spend nearly as much. And part of that spending, as Kat talked about, as Thomas even talked about, right, is the people side of things. Right? We lost about 11% of our company's marketing teams in the last couple of years, and they're not coming back. The St. Louis Federal Reserve Bank has this online database called FRED, which, by the way, I encourage everyone to check out, fred.stlouisfed.gov, or .org. I think it's .org. And they have 800,000 different data sets. Here is the number of open positions as a relative percentage before 2020 for architecture jobs on Indeed.com, right? So our baseline is February 2020, lost a bunch of people, and then starting in mid-2021, we have 80 to 100% more open architecture positions, right? Same for engineering, same for construction, right? So it's getting much more difficult to hire. Even in marketing, marketing has kind of settled down a little bit. We only have 20% more job openings than we did in February 2020, right? So in order to attract people, what do we have to do? We have to pay them more, right? We have to increase salaries, increase benefits. So marketing's going to get more expensive, marketing's not getting faster, and marketing's certainly not getting better. This is not exactly a recipe for success, right? So how do we fix this? How do we address these problems? One of the solutions for this is embracing sort of the analytics, the maturity ladder, right? It's 7 parts: data, measurement, insights, process automation, data science, machine learning, and being AI first. And we're going to talk through each one of these things. All right, let's talk about data first. How many people have or work with data on a regular basis in your company? Okay. Is there anybody who doesn't? Okay. How many of you feel comfortable and confident that the data you're working with is correct? Okay, like one person, right? This is the first big challenge. If you don't trust the data you have, then you can't do anything with it. And it is the foundation on which everything else is predicated. If your data is awful, it's going to be really hard to grow. There's 6 things that make data good, and these 6 things are things you can ask of anybody: your sales team, your CRM, your vendors, your partners, right? Is the data you have clean, right? Is it free from errors? When you're doing things like working with sales data is very rarely clean. Why? Because it requires a salesperson to enter the data correctly in the CRM. And most sales folks who don't fully embrace data will say that their time would better be spent selling things than doing administrative overhead. But that administrative overhead that they perceive is, in fact, what allows us to create better projections and forecasts. Second, the data needs to be complete. Again, look at any of the marketing data you have right now. This is going to get worse and worse and worse. The data we're going to have is getting less and less complete over time. In 2 months, less than 2 months now, in 5 different states, there are going to be brand new privacy regulations that are going to radically change the amount of data available to us, right? California, New York, Virginia, I think Pennsylvania, and there's one other that I don't remember. But these privacy regulations are going to impact our ability to advertise, because we're going to lose certain segments of consumer data because consumers didn't opt into it. We didn't say, yeah, please sell my data to everybody. The third is comprehensive. Does the data you're looking at answer the questions being asked of it, right? A lot of the time we have partial data, right? So we need to make sure that we can actually answer the questions of it. The fourth is it chosen well? A lot of the time we have data that is overwhelming. There's too much non-essential data, and if we are not careful about what we choose to work with, we get overwhelmed quickly. The fifth thing is the data credible? I saw a survey that went out to customers. I got this in an email from a financial services firm asking about our recent experience. Was it good, very good, or great? Like, well, it kind of sucked, but that wasn't an option. It was a non-credible survey, right? So that's an issue of credibility. And last, this is calculable, because it's something that people and machines can use. So let's say you get your data in order. You invest some time, which by the way is like 90% of all projects take the longest with the data portion. You then have to start working with measurement and analytics, becoming data-driven. One of the things that is very painful for a lot of people to admit is that if you have data and you're not making decisions with it, it's useless. It's a distraction. Right? If you're not making decisions with your data, it's just a distraction. Being data-driven is a term that people love to throw around. And you have experience being data-driven. If you have ever had, taken out your phone, open up the Maps app, put in a destination, and said, please give me directions, you have been data-driven, right? You put in a destination, and then you literally drive. Now, you have data to tell you, like, there's a traffic jam here, but you still do the driving. That's what it means to be data-driven. The problem is that destination that you put in. The destination is what it is you're trying to measure, the outcomes. Again, going back to some of what Kat was saying earlier, think about the data that you're trying to make a decision with. Does that data actually matter? What are your KPIs? Anyone care to guess, what is a KPI? Key performance indicator, what is that?
Measurement.
A measurement? A measurement of what? Of goals, okay? Here's an easy way to boil down what are KPIs and what are metrics. Are you going to get a bonus for it? Right? If the answer is no, or you're not going to get fired for it if the number goes the wrong way, it's not a KPI. Right? It's just a metric. What do you get your bonus for at the end of the year? Right? When Thomas this morning was talking about, what is your worth or your work worth, right? I was listening to people saying, I don't know. Well, what do you get your bonus for at the end of the year? Like, you don't get a bonus just for showing up. You get a bonus for doing something. So what are you held accountable for? Those are your KPIs. Almost everybody probably has a ladder of metrics like this in here, right? You have your audience, your prospects, your marketing qualified leads, your sales qualified leads, your sales opportunities, your open deals, closed deals, and revenue. Somewhere on this chart is probably a KPI for you, right? If you're in marketing, you probably have marketing qualified leads as a goal, right? That's something that you're held accountable for, and if you don't generate enough of them, you're in trouble. So what are your KPIs? Part of being data-driven is deciding what those are. And your KPI is the next person in the chain of business is their metric, right? If you are a sales business development rep, you're responsible for creating sales qualified leads, taking sales qualified leads and turning them into, handing them off to an account exec to turn them into business opportunities, to open opportunities, right? So their metric is sales qualified leads. They are held accountable for sales opportunities. You, as a BDE, you're responsible for sales qualified leads. Your metric is marketing qualified leads. If you chart this out in your company and you figure out who is responsible for each measure along the chain of value, you will very quickly be able to figure out what analytics you should be paying attention to and what analytics don't matter, right? What data doesn't matter. If you're collecting things like Twitter followers, that's fine. That's, there's nothing wrong with that data. But if it's not showing up on here somewhere, chances are it's probably not one of your KPIs. We had a client that our KPI, the thing we would get fired for was the number of Twitter followers he had, because he was in kind of a urinating contest with the CEO of a competitor. That one took a while. And no joke, we were told the measure of success for your entire contract is whether I have 2 million followers on Twitter at the end of the year, right? Whether or not we thought it was a good idea, we were very clear there was a clear KPI for which we were getting fired for if we didn't hit that number. And we did. He was very happy, and I guess he won. But that's the importance of KPIs. If you don't do this part, it's hard to move on. It's hard to move up the ladder, the analytics maturity ladder, because you need to be clear about what it is you're measuring and why. The third step is insights and research. So data isn't just numbers. This is something my business partner and CEO, Katie Robert, likes to say. Data isn't just numbers. Data is everything, every bit of information you have, and a lot of it is qualitative. A lot of it is stuff that you need to process and turn into guidance, right, to understand why somebody did something. I love Google Analytics. Not so much Google Analytics 4, but it will never tell you why. It will never tell you why somebody did something. Why did shopping carts get abandoned? Like, why did people not fill out this form? We need other tools for that. Things like NPS scores, right? That's a really good way to measure how satisfied somebody is with you. What is the likelihood that somebody's going to recommend your firm to a colleague in the next 90 days? On a scale of 1 to 10 or thumbs up, thumbs down, choose the measurement of your choice. But having that data and then being able to ask people, well, why did you say that? Right? Why was that important to you? Even things like social media data can be useful qualitative data just to understand your audience better. I looked at the most common AEC phrases on Twitter this morning, and most of them were around BIM, Building Information Management, architectural engineering, and so on and so forth. I don't know much about AEC. I apologize for that, but I was like, what is this building information management thing? Apparently, I'm guessing there's just a lot of people who are vendors in that space who just talk about it a whole lot and things. But is building information management important to you folks?
Yes, it's the creation of models.
Creation of models.
So BIM is actually models.
Oh, very cool.
It's down today.
It's building information models.
Okay, got it. Again, this is qualitative data, right? Yes, I can slap a number on the number of times it was used, but I don't know the space. If I want to understand the space quickly and understand maybe why my content is or is not resonating, if I was going to try and enter the space, I would create something like this to try and inform why. We had a recruiting issue a number of years ago where a company hired us to figure out why no one was filling out their job applications. Well, it turned out they gave us all 5,000 of their job applications. And we did some natural language processing, found the language most commonly used in those applications. Your CDL, you have these decorations and whatever. And then we took 17,000 calls from their call center, had them all transcribed by machine, and then did the same analysis. And they were all about starting pay per mile, are you home on the weekend, what kinds of truckloads you're calling. And we said, if you actually put the language that everyone would talk to you about into your job ads, you might find that, your job ads will perform better. They're like, really? People want to know starting pay per mile? Like, yeah. Is that not the first question you're asked in every call? They made a change, and they increased their applications 40%, literally overnight, because they said, we offer this, and you're home on the weekends, and so on and so forth. But that's qualitative data. That's that market research that informs why something is happening. Once you've got that, then you have to work it into process automation. I don't know what that clicking noise is either. It sounds kind of cool, though. Or something's going to blow up, one of the two. Process automation is all about saving time because doing analytics well, doing data science well, is essentially another profession. It's a different profession, just like architecture is a separate profession. I would not attempt to become an architect today, right? I would not dabble in it for fun if it was something important, like will this structure actually stand up if I design it? And so you need to clear time. There's a lot of automation opportunities, simple and complex, throughout your company that you can find 5, 10, 15, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes per day, per week, to free up so that you have more time to invest in deeper work. This is an example. We do social post curation. We curate social content. It used to take 2 to 3 hours a week to sort through a bunch of news and say, okay, which pieces of content do we want to share on our social media handles? This is not a great use of time. So we wrote some software that essentially reads a bunch of blogs for us, surfaces the 10 or 15 that we think match what we care about the most, and then the software just spits out a spreadsheet. We load it to our curation software. Instead of 2 to 3 hours a week, we spend 2 to 3 minutes one day of the week to load our social curation for the week, and now we're done. And now we have 2.5 extra hours. Right? But even simple things like keyboard shortcut apps on your computer just to automate the top 15 replies you always send. Right? If you just do little things like that and chip away, you will find the time to make for things like data science. But you have to automate. You've got to find as many places to automate as possible because, as you know, people are not exactly beating down the doors to work at our companies. Right? So we've got to find time with the people that we do have. Fifth is embracing data science. Data science, it sounds cool, it sounds fancy. There's all these really cool things like the data science lifecycle where you have all these steps in the process. But really, data science is just doing science with data. Right? So if you're familiar with the scientific method, come up with a hypothesis, test it, see if it works, right? Refine your hypothesis, and so on and so forth. That's all this is. It's just fancy language for that. But that's what you need to do to get to this next level is figure out how do we apply scientific thinking to our marketing, right? How many people have used website optimization software of some kind, like Optimizely, Google Optimize, stuff like that? Okay, a few of you. How many of you were very clear about what it was you were testing and why? Okay, no, there are no hands left. Because you're like, okay, well, maybe we should change the headline, right? Or maybe we make the red button blue. If you don't have that scientific background, it's very hard to do testing well, because you're saying, I'm just kind of picking things out of a hat and hoping that those things work, right? The ability to do exploratory data analysis is one of the most critical tasks in data science. To say, here's a pile of data, is it any good? Can we use this or not? Right? What is the goal that we're trying to accomplish with this data? How was it collected? Can we, what did you do with it? What are the attributes in it? What is this data made of? Is it dimensions and metrics? Is it, what kind of data is it? What are the anomalies in this data set? And then, does it meet what we wanted to do? Can we engineer more features if we don't have them? Right? If you're trying to figure out which of the top companies could be potentially good clients by SIC code for your new business, who has that data? Where is it? What condition it is? And can you build a model on it? So data science is that next step. The sixth step is machine learning and artificial intelligence, the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence. And this is where we're going to spend a lot of time today. What is artificial intelligence? Anyone?
Our future overlords.
Your future overlords? Not yet. Not yet. We're a little ways off from that.
Technology that learns.
Technology that learns. That's a good example. The best explanation is it is using technology to replicate human intelligence tasks. Right? If you can see me different from this background, you're using vision, right? And we can try and teach computers to have vision, right? If you can understand the words coming out of my mouth, and it's not just gibberish, then you are using that language processing. You can see on the slides here, I'm having it transcribe in real time, natural language processing. That's what artificial intelligence is. At the end of the day, all it really is stats and probability. Right? That is the fundamental underpinning of all machine learning and artificial intelligence. It's just a probability thing. And it's fitting that we're here in Las Vegas, which is the world's largest tax on people who don't understand probability. Right? Well, think about it. Right? Look at a roulette wheel. A roulette wheel's got 40 slots on it, and you can bet on red and black, and people are like, it's a 50-50 chance. Like, no, there's 0 and double 0. You are inherently always going to lose. In the long run, you are always going to lose. It's probability. But we don't understand that. People are really bad mathematically. Probability and exponents. Those two things people suck at. If we think of this as cooking, right? Stats and probability are the raw ingredients for all machine learning. It's the basics that you need. From there, we start talking about algorithms. Now, we use this term. This term gets misused a lot. An algorithm is nothing more than a repeatable process to create a defined result, right? That's all an algorithm is. You use algorithms every single day of your life, right? In what order do you put your clothes on, right? Some people put their top on first. Some people put their bottom on first. A few weirdos put their socks on first. Well, but whatever order it is, it's probably the same, right? You have a routine at bedtime. You have a routine at waking up. Those are algorithms. Repeatable process to get to a defined result. We use them all the time. If you've done A/B split tests in email and web design, you're using algorithms. Right? These are nothing more than recipes. That's what an algorithm is. It's a recipe. Now, here's where we start talking about machine learning. Machine learning, instead of us writing software that then does the thing, right? It's the reverse. So we would say instead of trying to teach a machine programmatically how to make a pancake, we would give machines a gazillion examples of pancakes and say, you figure it out. Here's a gazillion examples of pancakes. You figure out what a pancake is, right? And there's two-ish categories of machine learning. One is called supervised learning. Supervised learning is, I want you to find something. I'm going to give you an example, you find it, right? Like, identify great pancakes. You just show machines pancakes and pancakes over good ones and bad ones, and then you give it a stack of pancakes and say, is this good or bad? Well, these are squares that you made, and I've been trained on circles, so it's a bad pancake, right? The most famous example, I think, of supervised learning was from 2014. IBM Oncology was working at the University of Tokyo with a woman who was being treated for cancer, and she wasn't getting better. The treatments were not working. It was a type of leukemia. And so what IBM did was they took this woman's genome, sequenced it, stuffed it into IBM Watson, then took 233,000 oncology journals, fed that into Watson, said, figure it out. What does this look like? Right? Which matches most closely? And it turns out what they'd done was they had misdiagnosed her. It was a subtle change in the type of leukemia she had. They fixed the treatment plan. She made a full recovery. It went into remission. Now, the cool part is that it did it in 11 minutes. Right? So that's supervised learning. It's pretty interesting stuff. We use this all the time in marketing. The second category is unsupervised marketing, which is what's in the box, like figure this out. Can you give it a bunch of examples, categorize them, right? So if you had a recipe book full of pancakes, say, what are the different kinds of pancakes that are in this recipe book? Or what are the ingredients in a set of pancakes, right? If you feed all 9,000 pancake recipes on allrecipes.com, what do they have in common, right? They all have in common these ingredients like all-purpose flour, salt, baking powder, milk, etc. Right? This is just categorization. Take a look at the most frequent phrases in SMPS's Twitter followers, right? These are in your bios if you follow SMPS. Business development, construction management, design firm, real estate, engineering firm, right? We're not trying to measure something, we're just trying to understand like what's in the box, what do all of your Twitter followers have in common, right? So categorization. This gets really important when you start working with really big data sets, like articles and content coverage, things like that, images on Instagram, categorizing, just putting them into bins to figure out what's in the box when you're handed a bunch of data. When you look at your company's customer service inbox, or you look in your sales CRM at all the notes that your salespeople put in, categorizing that is really important to be able to make use of that data. When you start mixing all these things together, you get a type of machine learning called deep learning. Deep learning, if data was a bunch of grapes and supervised and unsupervised learning refined that down into like wine or another spirit, then deep learning would be essentially the hard liquor version of that. Distilled down to just the important part, just the part that's going to get you really drunk. Right? The net effect of that is that you get machines that think like us, but better, faster, and cheaper. And that's the point of all of this, is to get to better, faster, and cheaper. Now, do you need to know all these different architectures and things? Kinda. And the reason why you kinda need to know them is because there are a lot of companies in the marketing space right now that are saying that there's AI in their product, right? And you want to have a little bit of a detector of what our Spanish friends call excremento de toro, right? That's not what they would actually say. But being able to talk to a salesperson at one of these companies and say, okay, well, tell me about your product. How does it do it? Is it a supervised learning product? Is it unsupervised, semi-supervised, reinforcement learning? Some of these different terminologies, and you'll very quickly figure out which companies actually do the thing and which don't. In 2019, the Financial Times interviewed 100 companies in London that said they used AI in their product. And they found that 35 of them were outright lying. They had no AI whatsoever. They were just using overseas contractors. Right? So being able to call BS on a company and say, no, you're not actually doing the thing is really important, because you don't want to overpay. What people have done is slap really big price tags on anything that says AI in the box. So what are some practical examples of this? What are some of the use cases? The most common use case that we see is attribution modeling. Right? When somebody visits your website from all these different channels, email, social media, and stuff like that, you don't want to count the last thing somebody did and give all the credit to that. You want to count everything. Just like you don't count just who shot the basket in basketball. You also count the people who've got good passing game, because somebody's got to get the ball to the person to shoot a basket. Multi-touch attribution does that, where you can look at, okay, which channels play an important role, regardless of whether they were the thing that converted, to understand that. And this is built into so many products. We wrote our own because I'm a nerd. But it's built into so many products like Google Analytics and Salesforce and stuff. Knowing that it's in there is one of the most important things. And then using that data to say, well, gosh, if LinkedIn is 1.1% of my conversions, but I'm spending 15% of my budget on it, now I've got a mismatch. Right? Now I know I'm overspending. Right? That's how you use attribution models. They're not just cool, colorful displays. They're calibrations to say, am I getting the results commensurate with the time, effort, and money that I'm putting into something? And you can do it with channels where people are coming from. You can do it with content on your website. Like, what content is most likely to get somebody to convert? It's kind of like that old apocryphal tale of the college that didn't pave sidewalks, let students wander around like cows for a year, and then paved over where the students walked, right? The same thing is kind of true with your content on your website. You can figure out what pages do people visit the most when they convert. Or conversely, what pages convert people with the least amount of traffic, right? And you could use those pages to say, let's send that people to that page via email, put it as our social post, maybe run some ads to it, and see if those pages are just as good at refining the stuff. We're going to see our old friend Google Trends here, right? Google Trends is a good starting point for data, right? This is people searching for the term out of the office. Now, I'm going to give you your marketing calendar for the next year, because you can take existing trends data and apply machine learning and forecast it forward. What is somebody doing when they type in Outlook out of office? To try to figure out how to turn the thing on, right? Because they're about to go out of the office, which means, should you send marketing material to them? Right? No. Right? So you can forecast the last 5 years of data forward and say, when in the next year are people likely to be doing this? Now, some of it's pretty obvious, like, Christmas, 4th of July, certainly, but there are other periods of time when it's less obvious. And if you forecast this out week by week, you can figure out which weeks of the year should we send an email or run a campaign or do a big event, right? So in the first quarter of next year, starting in January, you want to do big marketing campaigns on the 8th and the 15th and the 20th, 22nd of January, and again on February 12th and the 19th. You don't want to do it on March 5th or 12th. I don't know why. Maybe it's March Madness. Spring break, thank you. See, I don't hang around people enough. And in the second quarter, right, your first few weeks of the quarter are good. Towards the end, where you get to the summer holidays and stuff, not so good. In the third quarter, 4th of July weekend, and then you get into, things get better again in September once you get past Labor Day. In the fourth quarter, all sorts of things going on there. But when you use machine learning, just basic forecasting to look forward and say, when are the people going to search for these things, you can predict people's behaviors. Right? You can say, this is when people are likely to do something, and therefore we can take action on it. We can make a decision. We're going to send emails these weeks. We're not going to send emails these weeks. We're not going to spend $100,000 in a direct mail drop the week of Christmas. Nobody's going to read it, right? Particularly in B2B, right? Where just anecdotally, between Thanksgiving and New Year's, you may as well just show up drunk to the office because no one's closing any deals. And you can use this data you can use these tools for more than just out of the office, right? You can look for things when people when they're searching for architecture firm near me, or construction firm near me, or civil engineering firm near me, and forecast that forward, right? Looking ahead. In January, architecture firm near me, and it's related categories. Second couple weeks of January, that is really well searched, right? What do you do then? You make sure that your pay-per-click ads, your Google ads, are funded extra during those weeks, right? Because people are searching for you. So this is what the power of machine learning does. It helps you just make decisions faster, better decisions, and a lot cheaper than having to go and interview a gazillion people. Because people already search for this stuff. People will search for stuff in Google that they would never tell another human being alive. There's a whole book about that called Everybody Lies. It's a phenomenal reading. Let's take a look at what the state of the art looks like in machine learning, where are things going. It's called generative AI, generation. This is a blog post from Mead and Hunt, right? How can early collaboration between designers and contractors combat rising costs? Why should they collaborate early? Pretty stock fare for an AEC firm, right? So I took it and said, I'm just going to take that title, write a 1,000-word article on the following topic: how can early collaboration between designers and contractors combat rising costs? And this model, GPT-3, is just going to start writing a blog post for me, right? Kind of handy. This is a good first draft, okay? It is not the finished product. It is original content, right? Here's the write a 5-paragraph AEC proposal introduction explaining the importance of mass transit transportation link between downtown Boston and the suburb of Worcester, focusing on reducing carbon emissions by 22% and speed, right? And so if you're writing proposals and you're staring at that blank page, stuff your basic, what you're trying to do into the machine and have it take a crack at a first pass. It's not going to be perfect, right? It is built on data we've already trained it with. So it's not going to create something that is totally original in the sense of like never written before. It's going to create stuff based on a gazillion and a half examples in the past. But there are tools out there that are in the market today that do this. Here's an example from a company called GoCharlie. I took the exact same thing and it gave me a 1,500-word blog post. Again, I need to edit this. Right? This is not production ready. I can't just copy and paste this. But it's pretty good. Right? In terms of things you can do to save yourself time, using generative AI is one of those examples. So do you buy or build this stuff? Well, it comes down to 3 questions: money, time, and strategy. If you have time and you don't have money, right, you can build these systems. A lot of these things are open source models. If you have money but you don't have time, you can buy them. But most important from a strategy perspective, if you're going to use artificial intelligence, are you using it as part of your secret sauce as an architecture firm or an engineering firm or a construction firm, or you're just using it for efficiency? If you're just using it for efficiency, then buy it. Don't build it, right? If stuff is built into tools you're already using, example, this is Otter. This is a tool that just transcribes audio. Every meeting I go to, I have this running, so it just transcribes in real time what I'm saying, so that if I can go back and remember later, what did I say to my client? Oh yeah, I said I was going to do these 3 things, right? It just takes notes for you. If you're using Google Analytics, there's already a ton of AI stuffed in here, right? You just have to find the features and turn them on. One of my favorites is anomaly detection. You can tell Google Analytics, tell me when these certain things happen. I just want to know when something weird is happening. Let me know so that I can fix it. If my conversions go up 50% in the last hour, I want to know why. Like, what happened that made that happen? If you are going to build it, you'll want to use tools. The one I recommend is called Watson Studio from IBM. This requires technical experience. This requires developers, because it's going to be using programming languages like R and Python, right? So if you are not a coder, this is not a tool to be using, right? That said, AI tools are getting better and better and better. How do we operate once we've adopted AI, right? How do you prepare your career? The number one question people have is who's going to lose their job, right? And the answer is initially not anyone, because AI is good at doing tasks. It's not good at doing jobs, right? Your job is a collection of different tasks. Here's the challenge. Depending on the size of your company and how progressive or regressive that company is, will determine AI's impact. Let's say this is 3 employees, right? And they all have these different tasks. They're all color-coded. And let's say that I can take away some of those tasks and automate them, right? So this is what's left of those employees' tasks. Now, at a progressive company, I would say, great, you've now got 4 more hours in your day. Let's train you to do something new. Train you to do something higher in value. I used to work in a PR firm, and there was one person at the bottom of the food chain whose job was to copy and paste results from Google into a spreadsheet. I'm like, how have you not clawed your own eyeballs out by now? Right? Your entire task, that whole task can go away, and we can get you doing something more valuable. At regressive companies, what will happen is somebody will say, well, gosh, all those people are just sitting around, so let's consolidate tasks and get rid of somebody. Right? So that's where you will see job losses. When you see companies that don't know how to upskill people, they will just simply get rid of them. To protect your own career, you have to be multidisciplinary. Right? You have to be able to do more than one thing. Because when you look at the top 10 skills that LinkedIn says are valuable as of this year, right? It's customer service, sales, accounting, and so on and so forth. AI is good at tasks. It is not good at comprehensive domains, and it is very bad at crossing domains. If you are good at digital marketing and you're good at leadership and you're good at problem solving, you are very hard to replace, right? But if you're only good at digital marketing, more of your tasks are going to go away. So you have to be multidisciplinary. You have to learn to think like machines, right? You don't have to program, but you have to learn to look at a problem and say, can I solve this once forever with some kind of technology, as opposed to just solving the problem week after week. Look at your calendar. Look at your calendar. What things recur on your calendar every single week or month, maybe even day? Is there a way to algorithmically get rid of that so that you don't have to do it anymore? A third thing is you are going to have to learn how to oversee machines. This is a profession unto itself because machines are only as good as the data we give it. In 2018, ProPublica did a study of a company that was trying to build an algorithm for determining recidivism, the likelihood that somebody would commit another crime. Their algorithm that this one company came up with was 20% correct. Right? You could flip a coin and get better results. But it overpredicted that black Americans would reoffend 5 times more than they actually did. Somebody put bad data in, and they got a bad prediction out. Right? So the machine was essentially taking data in that was inherently racist and reinforcing that. In 2018, Amazon tried to build a recruiting algorithm. Right? They turned it on and stopped hiring women because they trained it entirely on male developer resumes. And no one thought, maybe we should look at the data going into this thing, right? These are some of the challenges we have. A couple of years ago, I was at a marketing trade show, and somebody came up with this great algorithm thing, this great product, saying, we're going to predict where your ideal customers are. And they brought up a map of Boston. This is for the company Dunkin' Donuts. Said the red dots are where your ideal customers are. The black dots are where there's no ideal customers there. Now, for those of you who don't know Boston, the people who don't drink Dunkin' Donuts are dead. Right? Everybody else, male, female, non-binary, black, white, Muslim, Jewish, gay, straight, we all drink Dunkin' Donuts. Everybody drinks Dunkin' Donuts, right? But this company, look at where they predict this is not going to be the case. Washington Park, Dudley Square, Mattapan, Dorchester, Roxbury. Guess what part of the city those are? The predominantly black, slightly poorer parts of the city. This company reinvented redlining, right? And they're like, this is so clever, our algorithm's great. No, nobody said, hey, look at the results, this sucks, right? Because, again, everybody in Boston drinks Dunkin'. There's an entire cottage profession of people who can ask AI developers, what could go wrong, right? And the answer is an awful lot. Finally, you want to be outcome focused. The technology is evolving so fast and growing so quickly that you need less and less work to make it effective. I was trying to teach myself Keras, which is a deep learning framework, and then I went to IBM Think 1 year, and they said, oh, you don't need to do that anymore. Now it's all drag and drop. I'm like, oh, well, that would have saved me 9 months of trying to learn this thing. And then I came back the next year and said, oh, we got rid of that. Now it just does it for you. Right? You don't even have to drag and drop. Just tell us what you want to do. Right? This is the way the machines are going. It's getting to the point where we just say, what outcome do I care about, and can I find a machine that will answer those questions, right? Again, Google Analytics is a classic example. How do you prepare your company for AI? This framework is how. You have to work your way from the bottom to the top, and your ROI goes up the further up here you can go, the more you can save, right? You need to make sure you have the right people, the processes, a good purpose, choose platforms, and know what a good outcome is. Choosing AI technology, the platform is the least important part. The hardest part is the people, right? What kind of people are we talking about? There's 6 hard skills and 7 soft skills. The 6 hard skills, you need somebody who has stats and math expertise, right? This is if you're going to build your own. You need someone who has stats and math expertise. You need somebody who can code, someone who knows how to engineer data, somebody who has a scientific mindset, someone who's a business expert and knows the business application, and someone who's a domain expert, right? Because you certainly would not want me designing, for example, civil engineering code. Not at all. You like build bridges that would just kill you automatically. But these categories of skills, they might be in one person, very rare, but they might be in one person. They might be in teams of people throughout your company. So it's really important to have them. The 7 soft skills. People who are open and able to communicate with each other. People who are resilient and able to deal with setbacks, because there are a lot of them. People who are curious. This is something that we don't have nearly enough of in America in particular, because we have an education system designed by Carnegie and Rockefeller from the 1930s that's designed to build obedient workers and not build people who can ask tough questions. People who are patient, people who are persistent, people who are humble, and people who are passionate about this stuff, right? One of the reasons I have no life is because I spend all my time doing this stuff outside of work too, because this is just fun for me, right? So finding people who have these aptitudes are important. What does the future look like? The future looks like this. Today, this is what Google web search looks like right now when you put in a search term. Google is currently evolving it to do some level of summarization, and they want to get to the point where they just create content, right, that answers the question and sends you no traffic whatsoever. So SEO is kind of endangered. Keep that in mind. But this is the tip of the iceberg. Generative AI is radically changing every profession. I want to show you a couple of examples. Where is this? Right here. Right? You can see the Mandalay Bay and Delano. Is there a big skyscraper there? I asked an AI, put a skyscraper on the strip. And it made me this lovely picture of Las Vegas. Right? I said, okay, cool. What about the blueprints for it? Neat, right? I said, let's take this another step further. I want a blueprint of a luxury home, the floor plan with some of the prompt engineering. This is from an app called Stable Diffusion, which is free and open source. It's a pain in the ass to use, but it is free. I said, make me a blueprint of a luxury home. And it came up with this last night. Right? I said, that's pretty cool. I don't know anything about architecture, so I don't know if this is actually any good or not. But to the untrained eye, it looks at least like a blueprint, a floor plan of a house. And then it spit out what it would look like. Right? Think about that in terms of what you would do with that for marketing purposes, right? If your company, if you have your architects, your designers, your engineers, and the content they've created, the past projects for clients, you can teach these models, something called fine-tuning, to generate stuff that looks like your work, your unique signature and style, and then have machines do the first draft of these things, right? You can use this for marketing purposes, right? If you don't want to bother engineering to say, hey, we need a comp for something for our next campaign, just have a machine do it, right? The challenge is this. For us, the humans, we have to keep getting better and better because what we call the bar of mediocrity keeps going up. 3 years ago, machines could not do any of this, right? Machines, when they even tried to generate a blog post, more often than not, it was word salad. Today, as you see from the examples, it's not bad, right? And that not bad is on the verge of becoming good, pretty good. And in a few more years, be really good, right? So if your writing skill is at pretty good and the machine's at not bad, in a couple of years, the machine will be better than you at the writing part. So your job is to keep becoming better as a professional to outpace the machines, all right? So I know we're going to take a very short break, but again, if you want the slides, either shoot me an email or drop me or give me your business card. Let's take a, 15-minute break?
No. We don't have time for 15. You guys get 10 minutes, but if we put the QR code on the screen too. Oh, sorry. You're going to get all these slides, I promise. You're getting all the slides. I don't know if I mentioned that.
It's easier for us to take action sometimes, so right when
All right, can you put that other back on? Switch.
We'll put it back up after the break.
Okay.
Yeah, put it back up after the break. All right.
Fun, I promise. Thank you.
Thank you.